most people, I think, believe hospital chaplains spend their time praying with patients, meeting patients in these more formalized religious settings. And prayer does form a portion of that work, but the role is a lot deeper than just that. A hospital chaplain sits with people during these times when they're facing some really hard moments in their lives. Patients get a new diagnosis. Families are facing these decisions of what to do, or the parents just keeping watch at their child's bedside. Staff who are carrying the weight of the suffering over and over and over that they see day after day after day. And being in close proximity to them is one major aspect of the role. And really, the job centers around listening. I hear people talk about fear, guilt, regret, hope, love. And then the question that usually rises up above all this is, what does this mean? What's the meaning of what's going on? And what has my life meant? These bigger questions. Some patients want prayer. Some patients want silence. Some want this intimate stranger to be with them when they're facing death. I work with people of every religious tradition and people who claim no religion or organized belief structure or system at all. Illness places us all in the same human space, and there's no more diverse building in the world than a hospital. It really doesn't distinguish among all of the things that we distinguish among. We're human, we get sick, we die. That's universal. I came to this work through this long interest in meaning and mortality and the inner lives of people. As a child, I spent a lot of time by myself, a lot of time alone. And often the thought would come up about death and what does it all mean? I didn't know that there was a profession at that time that dealt with these sorts of questions, and that those sorts of questions stood out at the center of that work. And when I entered the hospital as a chaplain, I immediately felt this sense of recognition that these questions that I carried and asked over the years weren't as abstract anymore. They were actually present in people's lives and in every room in some capacity. And now I've spent over a decade in healthcare as a chaplain and currently as a manager of CPE programs, clinical pastoral education. I'm an ACPE certified educator at UCLA Health and manager for the CPE programs here. So I care for patients and families, but I also more so focus my work on the future chaplains and kind of this next generation of chaplains and training them and seeing how my experiences with people can translate into illustrations and stories and kind of training manual, if you will, for others who are going out in this same work. This work continues to hold my attention. It continues to bring me in close proximity to those who are, generally speaking, an unusually strange amount of honesty. And at times that life just really matters most. And I feel comfortable in those spaces, or I have grown to be comfortable in my discomfort. So I wrote this book because when I got into chaplaincy, I searched and searched for a manual that would help me better prepare for the experience of chaplaincy. And I learned a lot about what to do and what would happen, but almost nothing about the experience of chaplaincy. What would it be like in the day-to-day to be a chaplain? There was almost nothing out there that I could find. And then I found myself complaining about what was out there. And I finally just got tired of complaining, and I decided I'm going to contribute something more than just complaints. So I wrote this book. And from the very outset, I was very intentional to be vulnerable and to be honest, to use myself as an example rather than distance myself from the tougher, more painful truths of my life. And when I was writing the book, what changed in my understanding of the work was that I had first thought that I was recording what it was that I was witnessing. But over time, I saw that I was also tracing my own search for meaning. And these stories from the hospital and these stories from my childhood began to speak to each other, and really looking at and seeing, what's this thread? What was it that had been in my past preparing me for where it is that I ultimately landed up? That kind of came forward in a way that I wasn't anticipating. And then once I saw, was very intentional to trace more of that thread. One insight became pretty clear as I wrote. The more personal I shared, the more universal the interpretation could be. I speak about myself and about my relationship, and that invites others to do and to consider themselves and their relationships. We don't need perfect answers. This isn't a book that really provides many answers. It provides the search for what it means to me, and in a way invites others to ask those same questions about what it means for them. I think we all need someone who's willing to be present when we face what frightens us the most. And writing helped me to see with greater clarity how much healing begins when a person feels seen and accompanied. And that insight really came to me when I started sharing early drafts with other readers. I felt seen, and then I was no longer on this journey as isolated as I was before. And I'm not saying it was comfortable, but it was really liberating, and it was a great insight. We can approach grief and dying more honestly when we stop treating them as problems to solve. When we rush toward answers, when we try to remove the pain or the hurt or the suffering all too quickly, we often leave people feeling more isolated. I think a better approach would be to start listening. Sit down with people, ask simple questions, leave room for silence, allow people to speak about what it is that troubles them: regret, fear, guilt, love, unfinished relationships. Very few people are looking for advice. I think they need permission to tell the truth about what it is that they are experiencing. We also benefit from speaking more directly about death. Modern culture has been hiding death behind euphemisms and medical language. My phone died. My grandma passed. I think this habit makes open conversation harder. And when we use clear words and we face the reality together, then people often feel less anxious and less alone. My work has taught me that grief reflects love. We grieve because someone mattered. We fear death because life matters. And when we understand grief and dying as a part of loving and being human, these experiences become less foreign, even though they remain really painful. I think that's a lot more tolerable and a lot more cathartic for us. It's like the pressure builds up, and we need somebody to say it's okay to let it out. Rather than bursting out, can be this pressure release valve. And I think sitting in close proximity to others and restraining our own need to fix or to give advice is a great start to help people through this process. So the title comes from the clinical tension that I've experienced in hospital rooms. Patients ask for presence and then they withdraw. They want contact, and then they want space. And to me, stay with me, I want to be alone captures the clinical dance that we do with patients. And these words sit together because people hold both at once. Sometimes patients want me to stay so that they can be alone. And my presence gives them permission to drop performance, to stop explaining themselves, and to really just rest in their own interior experiences. And when we break down the punctuation marks as well, stay with me, period. I want to be alone, period. Stay with me, comma, I want to be alone. Stay with me, exclamation mark. I want to be alone, exclamation mark. And the meanings shift with each pause and with each emphasis. And that small change mirrors how they shift in real time at the bedside as well. So the title, I think, captures the core of chaplaincy work. I hold presence without taking control. I stay close without filling the silence. I don't fix the moment. I make room for it to be. And that balance defines the book. I think it also defines the clinical space that it comes from.